Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scale Smart Live. So glad to have you here tonight. I am your host, Taja M. Graham. I'm CEO and founder of Ops IQ. And guess what? Ops IQ has officially launched and we are live. So if you are that growth minded founder, there we go. If you are that growth minded founder that is looking to scale your business and need the right tools and resources to help you navigate that, there is a QR code here. Please go take that free assessment. See exactly where you are baseline right now and see how we can help you to make sure your systems and processes and the things that you need are in place for that scaling growth that you are looking for. And tonight, I am very fortunate to have a guest that understands what it means to have that operations process and systems in place. Tonight, I'm joined by Tyrone M. Robinson III. He is founder of Opportunities to Serve, who sits at the intersection of AI operational strategy and real life leadership. And I want to let him share a little bit more about his journey and what he's been doing in this space. So welcome, Tyrone. We're so glad to have you. Please share a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Taja. As you said, my name is Tyrone Robinson. I'm the owner of Opportunities to Serve. Been in business for approximately 13 years now. My focus, as you said, is as a fractional leader. However, I call what I do tri-focus fractional leadership, where I focus on operations, HR, and technology all in one. So essentially, I'm bringing departments to businesses, typically under 100 employees, that don't have those departments or just don't have them fully fleshed out yet. So I'm responsible for people, processes, systems, policies, procedures, and everything in between. In terms of where AI plays a part today, it's a huge pillar, I would say, in this case, helping bring all of the years of executive knowledge and experience into more formalized and standardized processes that are now run and sometimes governed by AI systems through the various platforms that we choose to use.
Well, we're grateful to have you here tonight. And what I really like about our conversation tonight is it's not just the tactical steps of operations or even what is the tactical steps of AI. What I really love about our conversation tonight, Tyrone, is that so many leaders feel successful on paper, but overwhelmed in real life, right? And what has the momentum that you've realized that in scaling a business without scaling your life operation, simply it doesn't work anymore. So talk to us a little bit about, our topic tonight is AI, leadership, family, scaling business and life operations. What does that mean to you?
All right. So essentially, Opportunities to Serve has two avenues or two customers. A primary customer for 13 years has been business owners, essentially helping them or providing optionality to have us run their business or have a collaborative partner run their business alongside of them. Within the last year, we've added what I would call family business enterprises or operations. Essentially, what that means is we're helping people in their family in the various stages of their life. More often than not, we're targeting aging executives and or people who are looking to age in place. We're helping them really with technology solutions that include AI in a lot of cases. However, these solutions are really geared towards a full solution to a really incredible problem. And I'll share sort of the why behind this particular part of the business. So my grandmother, she was diagnosed with Parkinson's maybe 4 or 5 years ago. During that time, she was actually found on her bathroom floor after a couple of days. She then had to go to a hospital, a rehab for several months. And the long story short here is I had to figure out, along with the family, a number of opportunities to help her be able to get back home and stay home, to be able to meet her needs and wishes. So for us, what that meant was everything from camera systems to a chairlift to, door openers from your phone remotely, whatever it took, right? It was creating these systems and processes and putting them in place so that our family could function without stress. So in terms of business operations or family operations, it's really all the same thing to me at this point, where, from the business side, most people think operations, they think processes and systems. It's the same thing in life. When it comes to HR, it's very similar in terms of dealing with people or working with people, building compromises, and helping people understand what's going on. So on the family side, what that looks like is just coordination with caretakers, housekeepers, family members, etc., all the way down to, I guess, volunteers, if you will. And then on the technology side, again, it's a very similar scope in that we are trying to provide enough support around any particular system or provide a solution with any particular problem, um, with technology in some way, shape, or form. The thing here is it's all unique. We don't just build things for everybody. We build things for that person and what their capabilities are. So essentially, the business operations, the family operations to me came off as the same, especially as someone who was delivering all of these services to my grandmother just as a grandson. It took me 4 years to realize that that was also a service that could be provided and offered to families that are, again, wanting to help their family member age in place. And again, with our practice, we are using a good amount of AI to support just that collaborative structure, and build peace within the quality of service that we're offering.
That's awesome. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that sandwich generation leaders as we go throughout the night. But I saw Alyssa's here with us this evening. I'm so glad to have you here, Alyssa. Definitely, it's a great topic of discussion for us tonight. But let's dive into one of our subtopics tonight, Tyrone, and make a little bit of a shift and we'll come back, right? But AI and fractional leadership, where do you see founders making the biggest mistakes when they think AI alone will solve operational challenges without the guidance of fractional leadership?
I guess the biggest, I won't call it a mistake, but the biggest issue typically is sticking with it, if you will, being willing to make the iterative changes as frequently as necessary. So sometimes what you run into is people feeling like it's a set it and forget it scenario. And with AI, it's the complete opposite, where it's set it, make an iterative change or make a change, make edits. I mean, it's almost like a behavior you have to develop with AI to be able to get it to where you want it to get it and also to keep it. But that also means you're actively working on it every day. There's no AI solution that I use with a high frequency rate that I don't actually uh, try to get better every day. So essentially, many owners or business owners are trying to implement something that is more or less living and breathing, and kind of still treating it like, it was something that was less likely to grow with the business. Excuse me. So for me, again, what I'm seeing is just people's unwillingness to put the work in, to put it simply, because it does require a good amount of oversight. It does require a good amount of stickability, if you will. That means literally nothing can be too small, nothing can be too big. The outcome is what you're after, and you have to put the work in to achieve it. So, again, many business owners give themselves the excuse, sometimes a real reason, And it's always just a time thing, right? I don't have the time, or maybe I don't have the expertise or the experience, right? And that's why you hire a fractional in this case, to be able to offset that time and experience gap. And then you're more or less, um, as that business owner, in the driver's seat, or in some cases the passenger seat. But the moral of the story is you want to build with and not build for. And so most business owners, if you give them an opportunity to get in the car, they will get in there. They'll pick their seat, and you can help guide them toward what that outcome needs to look like.
I love that getting in the car analogy of this. What would you say are some best practices as they look to approach the car? Like, are there certain platforms you would prefer over others when it comes to the AI space? When you talk about the frequency, what should be that cadence that that business owner and or alongside of the fractional that they would put in place should be considering? And what does the fractional really look like when it comes to engagement here in this space as they work alongside of that business owner?
Sure. So I'll answer backwards, and it'll probably provide that first answer. So for me, it's about creating first, creating to solve a problem or providing a solution, even if it's just a snapshot, to be able to say, hey, here's the problem, here's a potential solution or several solutions. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is how you use it, etc. So essentially, I'm willing to take the time to then make the time eventually when that person converts to the solution that I'm offering. So realistically, I'm willing to show improve before I'm ever in the position of just consulting, if you will. Anyone can say, you can be X% better or faster, but it's another thing to show it. So the nice thing about AI is that for the person who needs to show it, it doesn't take much time at all to be able to produce whatever it is that you need to produce to be able to make the point. Maybe just as recent as 4 years ago, that wasn't the case. But today, if I am offering a solution to a problem, if I have to make it from scratch, it may just take me a couple hours depending on the scenario. If we're talking about maybe implementing software solutions that have AI components, that's another piece of the story. But ultimately, in some of these platforms, I'm then creating myself within the platform, meaning I'm programming rules, governance, any kind of contingencies that need to happen, whatever the case may be. I'm able to work with the AI inside of the solution or as the solution to be able to make it become me or whatever is needed or whomever is needed within the organization, to a certain degree. To be able to get what we need to get done, and in some cases, be able to move the needle a lot further the first time than kind of rapid revisions on the same things.
That is a good point. When you look at that, are there very distinct KPIs that become relevant to what the outcomes you want from that AI process? What does that look like, Tyrone, as you're working alongside of those founders?
Well, the thing is, no founder is the same, and many founders are the same in one or two senses where if they pay you to do it, they just want to see it get done.
Hmm.
It's kind of that simple, honestly. Most of the time, I am the owner of said product or process within that company. So as long as it's happening, most business owners don't really mind to know anything else but that. There's very I would say maybe 40% of the time I actually offer to implement the solution and have someone else do it. And most owners won't take that option. So I think it's a level of comfort that people are looking for, a level of safety and security that people are looking for. They don't mind paying for something that they know is going to be there 10 out of 10 times. So for me, I think it's all just a matter of the person, honestly. It's what they feel they're missing the most that they're going to bring me in for, right? So if they're just missing solutions and they feel confident in their team and themselves to be able to execute once these things are done, that's a customer in itself. If they're the person that, again, is just after safety and security and consistency, that's a separate customer within themselves. So AI is at least allows you to create flexible options for people to be able to meet them where they want to be met without having any real barriers or challenges to that.
Yeah, good point. So let me ask you this: how does AI actually change the quality of decisions leaders are making? It's not just about the speed, which you kind of talked to and alluded to, but when you pair it with the right operational framework, what does that look like?
Sure. So again, every organization is different. All needs are different. All teams are different. So you're, in my case, building these systems to meet the needs of the team. So if the decision making tree exists, which it does generally when I'm working on any given project, um, there are branches that can be human branches or they can be AI branches in a lot of these processes today. So for me, it's about working with people to understand which branch they'll be most effective working as, and then building the tools around those branches, or even literally building the branches, in this case using AI, in some cases using a software tool, some cases using both, whatever the case may be. So if you really just think of a tree in this analogy, we're just building branches where we're using human capabilities where they'll be most successful. We're using AI where it can be most useful. And within that decision making tree, there's going to be things where AI can go all the way. There's going to be things where AI can go 80%. There's going to be things where we don't need AI involved, right? It's figuring all of that out within all of our trees, rather it's a phone tree because we're using an AI receptionist and we need to figure out when human handovers need to happen. Rather, we're on, a project management tool and something comes in and it's an issue and it needs to have a manager. Whatever the case may be, all these things are well within our capabilities to be able to make happen. Again, there's no one way I would do anything because almost the options are endless at this point. So it's really about creating the right solution for the people you're serving.
I love that. The customization of it definitely expresses to that for sure. So let's go to our next subtopic tonight. Yes, the AI solution for the sandwich generation leader, which we talked about a little bit. So let me address a little question here to pose some help here for leaders that are balancing their aging parents and trying to grow their business. What is the first operational system they should put in place to reduce the emotional and mental overload between that, Tyrone?
That's a great question. To be honest with you, anything that lends to collaboration is the answer, right? When you're we take it from the different phases. If you're an aging executive, you may actually be going from being the most prominent person to a day to day where maybe you're the most needy person in your household, meaning you can't send an email, you struggle with, the TV, whatever it could be. And this isn't a real example that I'm giving you, where, I worked with a really extremely successful real estate mogul. He was who he was outside of his home. However, in the home, almost every argument started. in or around technology. I mean,
Mm,
almost to like the point of like hand to hand combat with the wife and the daughter, right?
yeah,
So being able to witness these things, and I guess the duality that exists between one extreme to the other, and just recognizing that it's not necessarily abnormal of an issue, right? Because as an executive, you have a team typically, right? And that team is usually able to make you look pretty good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be your team. But in the household, maybe your team isn't as structured or committed to you in the same ways, right? And now you're
yeah,
struggling, right? And it's causing a rift in all of the relationships and your ability to execute anything, right? So you have that extreme. Then you have the people caring for said people, rather they are the aging executive and or the person who's aging in place, rather that's at home or in a facility of some sort, with some sort of autonomy, obviously. So, at the end of that spectrum, there's a lot of different ways people would have arrived at that said service or the need or recognition. And most of that, again, is just time and stress, right? My grandmother, for example, uh, was probably the most consistently successful person in the family, maybe ever, right? That I know of. However, at this point, she's extremely limited to the point where she can't even get up from a seat or the bed on her own, right? For her to be able to have to, I guess, endure these things for a number of years and then arrive at the point where it's like, I am limited, this is all I can do, and I can't do these things. That's something I personally can't speak to, right? That recognition outside of, for a period, I couldn't walk because my back was pretty bad. I required emergency surgery, right? And to go from A to Z is pretty incredible, but to stay there is another thing. So we're talking about the person who was just last week, like quote unquote, the most successful person maybe they know, to the person who is the most successful person, but can no longer benefit themselves in the way that they've benefited others this entire time, right? The spectrum's large. And so
yeah,
for us, it's really about people who understand the value or want to understand what it's like to have less stress, because you've built the community, you've built uh, technology solutions, you've built support structures to be able to help someone in a significant way. Most families deal with, time, travel, or distance, all of these things that keeps them from being who they want to be or where they want to be. And we're trying to really decrease that gap, right? We want to have unified services versus fragmented services, which most families deal with. So, what we call family business operations doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a business owner, but it does mean you're thinking of your family as a business, recognizing that there are people, processes, systems, and all of these pieces that allow businesses to run, that they exist in the family structure as well. So that's what we mean when we're thinking about family business operations, is literally saying, you know what? If I'm this aging executive, I certainly understand people, process, systems, technology. And then I understand how intrinsically that has helped me become who I've become. Therefore, within my household and these newer needs, we should be able to make the same support structure to help you be successful on that end of things. So that's what we're bringing to the table. And again, the aging executive understands this because they're now transitioning to a period where they're no longer, quote unquote, the top person. In fact, a lot of times, because they've been who they've been, haven't had a lot of the experiences that everyone else has had.
yeah. Yeah. So talking to it in business terms again, as family dynamics change or shift, be it age, new members coming on board, how do you forecast what will be then the operations of that family dynamic and the integration of, be it AI or any technology? How do you get ahead of that, Tyrone, so that the early adoption of that will take place, and that all of the family members, like in your business, feel that they can adjust accordingly?
I guess you're really just thinking about buckets of need. Can a family member do this? Can a volunteer or a friend do that? Does a professional need to do this? Right? If we use very simple buckets and literally drop in what belongs in each bucket, I think we can really figure out who should be where and then build the structure to support and build the accountabilities, which is most of the thing, right? Um, to be able to support said person. So again, family might be, uh, take this person to the doctor. It may be make this person dinner, help this person get to bed. Volunteer may be uh, come over for lunch, hang out, maybe pick some things up, uh, these types of things. And then a professional may be, you know what, between 3 and 5, we have no idea what's going on with Nana. Maybe we need a camera system to be able to pick up that gap of time because guess what? We don't want another scenario where we find Nana on the floor, right? If it happens, we need to know immediately instead of 48 hours, right? So it's realistically trying to figure out where the gaps exist in terms of care, coverage, and anything else, right? Like you're literally trying to say to yourself, I can go to sleep at night because these things are accounted for, right? I can wake up this morning and go to work knowing that these things are accounted for. When these things drop, I know there's a secondary person, a third person. Maybe there's even another tool right there to help, right? In our scenario, I have from my phone the ability to open my grandmother's door. That means we have a process for the last person out of that home has to follow for that to even work.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
understand? So everyone has to understand the rules, why they exist. We're all
Mhm.
serving the same person. So the why is pretty simple, right? But it's collaboration that makes all this happen because if the last person out doesn't follow the rule, I can't help if needed in an emergency in the morning,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
we're building these structures, we're building these accountability pieces, and again, figuring out which buckets belong where and just organizing that. And again, from that HR perspective, making sure everybody is where they need to be and who they say they're going to be.
Yeah, yeah. That I do appreciate that everybody plays a role in the playbook, for sure. But what happens when there's a pivot?
Sure.
Something dramatic has happened, a health issue or something to that level. How should we process the pivot when it relates to that playbook that you've been talking about?
Sure. There's always contingencies built in. Um, just to keep with the same example, if I can't unlock the door. And this is the same example where that last person the night before leaves and doesn't follow procedure. Then I have 3 numbers to call before I even think about driving. All right. So it's if not this, then that. Basically, it's conditional. But you've already thought of these conditions. For most people, thankfully it's not so many things that could happen, right? You get hurt, call these people. You get hungry, you call these people, right? There's things that are more or less set in stone, even though life is not.
Mhm.
Right. So again,
Yeah.
for me, I have a back issue. If my grandmother falls right in front of me, I can't attempt to pick her up. Right. I
Mhm.
have to know who to call immediately. Right. Otherwise, I'm just hanging out with her on the floor. I tell her, don't do anything tricky when I'm here. I'm just going to sit here with you. Right. So, the long and short is with that analogy, or that exact scenario, I should say, not every family member is equipped to help
Mhm.
in all of the ways
Mhm.
that are right. So just because I'm there does not mean that I can help her get up. It does not mean that I can do the things that may actually injure me before they
Mhm.
injure, right? So again, it's understanding everybody who's involved in this case on the team, and then writing them in your words, the playbook to be able to be successful. So again, what's my play? Technology, organization, collaboration, uh, advocacy, these things, right? It's not put that person to bed. It's not, these other things that we have people for, right? So again, family operations, no different than business operations. We just don't typically speak about it in the same terms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the whole team approach, in addition to the technology, the human capital in it is just as important as the technology that engages with it as it goes. But you know, uh, I want to talk about, and I think you had shared this with me before. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. But when there's certain external issues, like give an example of like a COVID moment, right? Where the family structure and the workflow can go a little hindered because of what is happening.
Correct.
And you might not be able to be as reliant on the human capital because of lack of contact. How does that process for you, or what does that look like?
Well, I've been delivering virtual services for 13 or more years now. So I've always been willing to create processes that are transferable, if you will, right? So in this case, transferable would be in-home versus virtual services, right? What can we do without being there if necessary versus what can we do with maybe limited access if necessary. So, without being somewhere reasonably, if we're just going to keep one analogy here, if I'm my grandma, I can actually not only see her, I can communicate with her through the telecom, right? If there's things that need to happen, a lot of stuff's in there is smart. We can figure that out. We do have like the Alexa and all these things that are put together. So we essentially have an ecosystem that we can scale up if we needed to, just from things that are able to talk with each other, right? She just got a new dishwasher. Of course, that's smart. Everything's smart at this point, right? So, it's thinking, future thinking, right? If we're going to buy something, let's make sure that if it needs to be operated in some kind of way, like, is there an alternate option here, right?
Mhm.
Because what are we dealing with? Who are we dealing with, right? So, ultimately, building tools and systems that can work virtually. Like I said, I can unlock the door right now as we're talking. These things exist in a bunch of different ways. For us, fortunately, my grandma has solid neighbors. So sometimes it's a matter of popping open the door and having that person pick up a shift for us, quote unquote, right? But in a limited access scenario, it's the same thinking. It's in her case, my grandma couldn't get out the bed without a person, right? So there isn't a real scenario where limited access exists, but we do have live-in options. So we actually have a cousin of hers live with her for a couple weeks at a time. So that would be our scenario where it's nobody in, nobody out. But again, where'd that bucket come from? Family. That family member couldn't be far from like I don't even know how he gets in the family. He's so far, but he's
Mhm.
been for us for 2, 3 years straight, almost the linchpin of the whole operation. I mean, he's there 3, 4 times, or I should say 3, 4 weeks at a time, right? And guess what my phone doesn't do when he's there?
That's right.
So
Right.
again, figuring out who, what, when, where, how, why, that's a collaborative effort between family if you're fortunate enough to have it. Um, And that's what we utilize to make sure we can get the best out of whatever's available if it's available.
That's really smart. Absolutely. Let's go to our next topic for tonight. Let's see here. Enabling strategic family enterprise operations, business operation principles meet family life. And I think that's what we've been kind of talking about overall, is the workflows and accountability
Mhm.
between the team members that are there and present. Um, how do you keep it? Because it feels like, in principle of what we're talking about right now, very transactional. But how does it come over or convey, especially as family members? Because I can attest, I'm an operational driven individual, so I can get around family members sometimes, and my operations hat kicks in, and I'm not as personable, right, to the
Mhm.
family member at the time. How do you keep it in the human nature and very personable skill sets,
Sure.
and still get the outcomes that you're looking for?
So all packages on that family business operations are just as personable as the business operations. I actually don't speak or hang out with any other group of people more than the people I serve as a fractional. And in the family operations, it's virtually the same because there's built-in touch points, like real human contact, meaning we are actually committed to going there a couple of times a month, a few times a week, whatever the package may be. There's a human element there that is not lost, right? So we don't just want to be virtually accessible. We want to be a presence, all right? Because I think for older people, especially, a presence makes maybe the difference between life and death. And what I mean is sometimes if other people know that that person has a presence or multiple people in their lives, they're less likely to be victimized in some way, right? So you're more or less. I'm going to stick with the word providing presence, and I think it's really important, especially when again you can turn on the news every day and hear about an older person being victimized in some kind of way, whether it's fraud, physical, whatever it could be, right? So we're providing presence with our actual presence on premises, our actual presence maybe on some of these virtual calls that everybody is now asked to make, whether it's with your healthcare provider or whomever, um, maybe even there during the time your housekeeper comes, well, whoever is there, right? We want to know, or we want people to know that not only are we here and present, but in my grandmother's case, we're also in the sky. You never
Mm.
know when we're looking at the camera. You don't know who has access. All you know is that in any given time, we're looking right at your face, right? And there's no guarantee, but it's a presence and it's important. And so just like in, business, a fractional executive is a presence for that business owner. It's that safety net. It's that person that's going to be there to support the business. In most cases, more expertly in certain areas than the business owner themselves can provide. Right. So we're thinking about the same thing on the family side where it's, hey, you know what? Not only are we here, but we're going to give you the idea that we're everywhere, right?
Mhm.
Because that person that we're caring for is important, right? And we don't want you to think that you can do anything outside of what we're asking you to do. And I think that's probably the most important part of it all when we're talking about that side of things.
Yeah. So if grandma is the CEO of this company dynamic and you guys are working as a team around her, talk to me about how did she initially um, accept or embrace what was this fractional support coming alongside of her and building structure. And so especially as elderly people giving
I
their
get
need
you.
of autonomy. How did that work for her?
It was simple in this case. It was a condition of release, like prison, right? So, if
Okay.
to be able to go home from rehab after being discovered on the floor, they're going to say, "You need X, Y, Z in this house, or you have to hang out somewhere probably a little bit more permanently." So we had a list of things that had to happen, right? And everybody had to say who was going to do what.
Yeah.
It was just that simple, right? We picked straws if we had to, but the point there was it was conditional. Before that, how many times did I say we needed a camera? Too
Yeah.
many. How many?
Yeah.
So I get you. I get
Yeah.
you. Sometimes you have to bump your head. We
Yeah.
can't avoid that, right? In our case, because I had said it so many times, I didn't have to say it again. Once it was conditional and on the paperwork, it was get it done, right? Like it was no conversation. Nothing that was previously discussed was a conversation once it was a condition of release. So
Mm,
sometimes, my grandma being one of them, you have to bump your head. But in some cases, right, you don't get two bumps. She
mm,
almost didn't,
mm,
right? And that's a realistic issue that I would hope we could offset in some of these cases where at the very least a third party is coming in, no bias at all, you know, but coming in with a real idea of how to, if you're the older person, get your kids and family off your back. And if you're the other side, help that person help themselves the best, right? And again, almost everything is technology driven. You can't even pay your bill without having access to technology. Trust me, I know because I have to help when the need happens. My grandma not only can't remember a password, which is why we have digital access, right? But her hands don't work all the time, right? I mean,
mm,
there's so many limitations that people deal with that you have to have a unique way to approach. And again, with her, I'll just do it. That's a family bucket, right? The groceries need to happen. She can just call me. She has an infinite account with me. Family bucket, no big deal, right? So again, it's a marriage between what has to happen with technology and what humans can do, and who needs what and when. Not everything is appropriate all of the time in any of these scenarios, but we have them all just in case.
yeah. Well, I think what I really appreciate about this too, and by the way, I'm taking notes because as my parents continue to age, I'm thinking through, okay, how are we going to play out the business dynamic for them as CEOs of their destiny? But I think the critical thing that I heard that really was the connect point tonight is it's not just a one moment situation, that it's constantly evolving and changing, and you have to have cadence of routine, review, and knowing when you need to pivot or switch or bring in a different family member, team member, or a different piece of technology, the camera or whatever that could be the door, to ensuring that the longevity of that CEO's life is the objective here.
And that's the same exact thought process behind AI implementation, as I said, where it's a marriage.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't just get it done. It's continuous over time. It's work every day. It's a commitment. It's consistency. It's all these things that drive a relationship. AI is no different. Your family member you care about is no different. If you thought you were going to be lucky, they'd be stuck in the same situation forever.
mhm,
You won't be. There's going to be stuff happening every 4 days sometime. And
yeah,
you have to adapt and pivot, right? And you have to build those systems if you're lucky enough to have a solid ecosystem. But if you aren't, then we're trying to figure out how to get the most with the least, and build that support structure.
that's a good point. I think we got time for our last subject for tonight. So let's see what we have here as our last subtopic here. AI enablement. I think that one we've done. Yep. Okay. Coordinating. Okay, I think we actually might have covered it. Maybe it was our the first one about the growth. But as we look to wrap up tonight, which I really have enjoyed, Tyrone, your thoughts and the compliments of how, from even the business side of things to your family structure, it all has the same processes and philosophical theories of how you go about supporting both of those dynamics and bringing some clarity to who is that the owner of that, which it could be the CEO, could be that family member. So I'm appreciative. This has really been a dynamic conversation. For those founders that are watching tonight and only implemented AI enabled in their operation habit, if they're looking to do it in the next 30 days, uh, what would you create? What would create the biggest relief and impact across both the business and the life dynamic, if they're looking to implement that AI today or in the next 30 days? What would you say that to be?
We'll take an easy route and say it's whatever you want. In my personal belief, uh, with AI, building literally your dreams is possible. I've been able to obviously implement AI practices and services within my business. However, I've also been able to build out things that I'm passionate about or just have fun doing and make more money in some cases than I've ever really imagined. In one case last year, I built mostly AI based RFP response process. In this case, I'm winning RFPs over 80%. For most companies, to get one RFP in a year would be great. And I'm now having companies commission me for more than 12 and up to 20 in a year, where they've like never even been thinking about this many because of certain successes that we've been able to produce through this RFP, but AI driven RFP process.
Mhm.
Another piece of that puzzle is last year I created what I know to be the most successful horse racing handicapping system that exists. Um, Most of that is AI based in terms of how the decisions are made. It's probably about a 40% manual process, but ultimately, I believe those results are unrivaled. I haven't seen the numbers to say that we're competing with anybody. And now I'm building Swisher, which is a college basketball focused app or system. If you're kind of thinking about it, how it is in play today as a system, but could easily be an app tomorrow. Literally, I can click a button and make it an app. But the all in all there is creating multiple revenue generating streams or opportunities is super important to me. And I know it's important to a lot of other people. So
Mhm.
the answer to your question, like I said, is not limited. It's
Mhm.
whatever you feel like doing. I've now have another business with multiple products in a new industry that I never really even thought about being in, right? It was a hobby, it was something that was fun, and then it made tens of thousands of dollars in a week. And I said, well, this makes a lot of sense, right? So at the end of the day, with AI, it's not about anything other than seeing what you want to get done and building it or having someone do it, but you can build it. If you can think about it with AI, you can build it. And that's something that I would certainly pass on to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, even as I look to build out Ops IQ, AI was at the critical point of us being able to be efficient in our automation, right? And in making certain that we could serve and scale to a bigger audience. And so, that has really been a catalyst, even in the beginning, at the very start of engagement with Ops IQ with our assessment. you'll find that to already be in there. And so, and we look to ways that you can continue to scale in the platform by use of AI technology, that it's just going to continue to bring value to the platform. And there is still humanality and connection to support as well. That doesn't negate the need for that, but where you, to your point, where you can put the right people in the right places, or the right systems in the right places for that workflow, is where you look to the technologies to lean on. And so I think it's a smart play. And the fact that you're able to multiply, not just scale in one dimension, but to multiply into multiple different dimensions, just speaks volumes to your commitment to continuing to engage with the platform of AI, you know, in the long term play. So, you know, as we look to end the evening tonight, because you know, a lot of people have stated that, you know, they're a little gun shy about AI, or you know, there's a hesitation to it, or there's confusion on which is the right platform to utilize, or what would be to that founder who's not yet embraced it. They know that it is something they need to do, or they're on the other side of that spectrum of, oh, this is going to pass by and we'll never look at this again, at some regard. But what would you say to those that just have been apropos to even acknowledging and or embracing AI right now?
I would say it's on you. I'm a gambler. So if you want to take that gamble and think it's going to just pass you or blow by you without everybody else passing you and blow by you, I'm not here to convince you. I literally wake up every day and build opportunities that didn't exist the day before. I don't really feel the need to convince other people to come with me. There's plenty of people on the road already, right? So, you know, you can kind of stay where you are and watch, or you can participate. I think either one is really up to you. I know where I am, and I know where the people who hire me want to be. And that's enough of the world for me to focus on.
Yeah, I love that. Well, again, I appreciate having you on with us tonight, Tyrone. I continue to wish you, both in business and in family, the very best. I know that you will continue to be innovative in how you approach both of those set of circumstances. So, you know, as we look to end the night, any other words of encouragement or thoughts that you would share to close us out?
Bet on yourself. That's really it. I get the opportunity to bet on myself every day. Get the opportunity to work on products or systems that can enable me to kind of hit one out of the park, so to speak, any given day I feel like doing it. I have built things that are extremely revenue rich, that have a place all throughout the year. Baseball's coming after um, basketball, right? So, you know, literally all year around. And I think for anybody who's able to hear this, my only real piece is to not limit yourself to maybe what yesterday's possibilities presented themselves as. I think today you literally can think it, you can build it. If you can't build it, you can build a portion of it. I mean, you can do something, right? If you think about it as like a human body, you can certainly build the head, right, in AI, which is project knowledge, instructions, and things of that nature. You can build the mind.
Mm,
And so
mm,
I just kind of had to argue with anybody. If you can already start with building the head, you can finish the body, right? Or you could at least understand um, enough to be able to help someone help you create the body. But the point here is there's nothing off limits, nothing is just too out there, but everything is within your grasp. So choose wisely where you spend your time. I spent 8 months straight on horse capper, just because my grandma brought it up in a conversation as a to do, right? 8 months. And when I say about the commitment it takes to build world class AI systems, again, I spent 8 months on a hobby, right? Just think about what this looks like on a daily process in your business that's worth however much to whomever is using it, right? It's significant.
Yeah.
It's time. Again, it's a relationship. So again, build a relationship with AI in the areas that make you the happiest.
That is very well said. I thank you, my friend, for being here with us tonight. Thank you, audience, for also being here with us tonight. We look forward to having you back in 2 weeks as we will have another episode of Scale Smart Live. And in the meantime, if you haven't already, please go check out Ops IQ, OPSIIQ, OPSIQ.biz. And for those growth minded founders looking to grow their businesses with sustainable system processes, please go and take the free assessment. We'd love to be able to engage with you and help you continue to focus on that growth that you're looking for. In the meantime, have a wonderful evening, and thanks again for being a part of Scale Smart Live.